The law of supply states that other things remaining the same. If the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied of that good increases. When the price of the good falls, the quantity supplied decreases. There's a direct relationship. So just the opposite of the demand, the law of demand. And the law of supply occurs because an increase in the quantity of a good produced results in an increase in its marginal cost. So the price has to rise in order to induce firms to increase the quantity they produce. Price has to go up for companies to make more stuff. We can look at the supply schedule and supply curve. Let's see, moving down here to supply schedule. Price in dollars here going from 1 to 5, the quantity supplied going from 10 all the way up to 50. So that's a chart of what's going on, a hypothetical chart. And then what does it look like if it's graphed? With the supply, it's going to start at the left and go up to the right. So the price of $1, 10 units supplied, and moves on up this way to the right. Just the opposite of the demand curve. The demand curve follows the line of this pointer here. Supply curve goes up this way. Price of $5, 50 units produced, just like the supply schedule showed. Just like the demand, the market supply is the sum of the suppliers of all the sellers in the market, not just individuals. There's a sum of all the sellers. So we looked at what changes affect a change in demand. Now we're looking at a change in supply. There's the factors that are similar to the factors that change demand. When any factor that influences selling plans other than the price of the good changes, there's a change in supply. An increase in supply shifts the supply curve to the right, and a decrease in supply shifts the supply curve leftward. There's 5 factors that affect change in supply. Prices of related goods. Again, there's a substitute in production. There's a good that can be produced in place of another good, such as the soft drink Pepsi and Mountain Dew. They can be substituted in production. A complement in production is a good that must be produced with the initial good, such as wood and then wood pulp. That's the complement of the production of wood, is wood pulp. A fall in the price of a substitute in production or a rise in the price of a complement in production increases the supply of the good. Another factor is prices of resources and other inputs. The price of resource used to produce the good rises, the cost of producing the good rises, and then the supply of the good decreases. Expectations. If the price of the good is expected to rise in the future, the supply of the good today decreases. Number of sellers. If the number of suppliers increases, the supply increases. And then productivity is the output per unit of input. An increase in productivity lowers costs and increases supply. So we looked at the demand curve changes. Here's the changes in the quantity supplied versus a change in supply. A change in the price results in a movement along the supply curve, and that's going to be a change in the quantity supplied. So it's movement up and down the supply curve here. A change in the price. Again, that's the only thing that causes movement along this line, a change in price. Those other factors I mentioned shift the supply curve out to the right, or it could also be out to the left. So in the figure, the movement along supply curve from SO from A to B. It's a change in the quantity supplied. So again, it's going to be along that line from here, from $2 up to $4, a change there. And then the shift of the supply curve from SO to the new supply curve, S1, is a change in supply, the movement out this way. Why don't you check your comprehension then? Factories can use their resources to produce either DVDs or CDs. In the market for DVDs, the following event occurs. The price of DVDs is expected to rise next year. So, what's the effect on the supply of DVDs? You can use a graph to illustrate the effect. Again, you can pause this video lecture, pull out a piece of paper and a pencil, and try to sketch out the graph, what might happen in that case. Is it movement along the supply curve or a shifting of the curve? And I can tell you that if the price of the DVDs is expected to rise next year, the supply decreases now. As the price goes up, so there's a decrease in supply, the supply curve should shift to the left, is what you should have written down. Market equilibrium. Equilibrium is simply a situation in which opposing forces balance. It's a middle point. It's almost like in physics, a fulcrum, a balancing point here. So equilibrium there, that forces balance. It's the price at which the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. Equilibrium quantity is the quantity bought and sold at the equilibrium price. So in this figure, the equilibrium price is $3. The quantity supplied is at 30. So the demand and the supply curves meet. That's the price and quantity supplied. The price is supposed to be a market's automatic regulator, and that is that the law of market forces states when there is a shortage, the price rises, and when there's a surplus, the price falls. What's a shortage? Well, if the price is below the equilibrium price, consumers plan to buy more than firms plan to sell. There's a shortage that results. That forces the price higher towards the equilibrium price. Just the opposite, when there's an excess of supply, if the price is above the equilibrium price, firms plan to sell more than consumers plan to buy. The surplus results, forces the price lower towards the equilibrium price. If you're predicting price changes, there's 3 questions to ask. Does the event affect the demand or the supply? So that's one question to ask. Does the event increase or decrease demand or supply? This question determines whether the demand or supply curve shifts to the right or to the left. And finally, what are the new equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity, and how have they changed? So 3 questions to ask, and then look at the effects and the changes in demand. If the demand for a good or service increases, the demand curve shifts to the right. As a result, the equilibrium price rises and the quantity increases. So in this example, here's the original demand curve. There's a change. The demand curve is shifted out to D1. The price was at $3. The quantity was at 30. This being pushed out changes the price to $4, the quantity to 40. Similar situation with supply. If the supply of a good or service increases, the supply curve shifts to the right, moving here to the right. As a result, the equilibrium price falls and the equilibrium quantity increases. SO here, this line, is the original supply curve. There's a shift in the supply to this new S1. The price was at $3, the quantity at 30. With the shift in the supply, the price drops to 20, and the quantity now is at 40. What if both change? There's a change in both demand and supply. If both the demand of the supply of a good or service increase, both the demand and supply curves shift rightward. Here's SO to S1 to the right, DO to D1 to the right. But what happens to the price of the quantity? Well, the price remains the same here if you look at this graph. But the quantity is shifted from 30 over to 50. Still, the price is at $3 still. That's the equilibrium price, but more of a quantity supplied. These concepts are a little confusing, so there's some steps that I wrote down here to think about to answer these questions in the text about changes in quantity and changes in demand. The way to answer any question that seeks a prediction about the effects of some event or events on a market has 5 steps. So take these 5 steps when answering the questions. Step 1, draw a demand-supply graph and label the axes with the price and the quantity of the good or service in question. That is the X going up and down, the Y going across. Label it with the 2 items in question. Step 2, think about the event or events that you were told will occur. Decide whether they change demand, supply, both demand and supply, or neither demand nor supply. Think about it in other words. Step 3, do the events that change demand or supply bring an increase or a decrease? Step 4, draw the new curve. Be sure to shift the curve or curves in the correct direction. Leftward for decrease, to the right for the increase. And finally, step 5, find a new equilibrium and compare it with the original one. By the new equilibrium meaning, what's the new price? What's the new quantity supplied? Or is there any change at all? This is a lot of information. At the end of the chapter in your textbook, there's a series of 9 different graphs. You don't need to memorize them, but take a look at them. Play with them a little bit. Cover up the descriptions, and you can try to think about how the curves will shift depending on the event. I hope this is helpful. Please send me an email if you have any questions. Thank you.